It's crazy how quickly a team's fortune can change in such a short amount of time. Just a few short years ago, the Boston Celtics were a team pegged by almost everybody in the media as the next dynasty, with Colin Cowherd infamously congratulating them on winning the East every year for the next 5 years back in 2018, only for them to, obviously, not win the East a single time since then. They have had incredible young talent develop with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown becoming bona fide stars to lead the way. They've had terrific coaching for years under Brad Stevens until he took a new role in the team this year, and their supporting casts have always been great on paper. Yet, for some reason, they've been trending down in the standings instead of up for a few years now, and with the way they've started this season, they're quickly approaching the pinnacle of dysfunction. This obviously brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be going over everything wrong with the Boston Celtics right now, what got them here, and whether there is legitimate reason to worry, or if it's just a fluke of a slow start. Before we start though, it turns out about 49% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. In the aforementioned period where the Celtics were labeled as the next great dynasty, it came at a time when Kyrie Irving had been acquired to pair with players like Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart, and Al Horford. That's a ton of talent on one team, but the chemistry amongst the group was just never right, and in 2019 they were eliminated in the second round of the playoffs after being one of the favorites to win the whole thing. I won't talk too much about that period, but basically, Kyrie Irving at the time got scapegoated in many ways for the team's underwhelming year compared to their expectations, and as a result, he left them to team up with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. Now, especially with everything going on now with Kyrie Irving, I'm not here to say that he was completely blameless and without fault, because everywhere he's gone has had a lot of drama follow. However, clearly the issues in the Celtics locker room ran much deeper. The purpose of this video is to analyze why the Celtics have regressed after a season last year that already saw them come up short of expectations, and for this, there will be two main points I want to make. The team is off to a start this season, having won only 2 of their first 7 games. They're sitting in 12th place in the East right now, and the team doesn't seem to be on the same page at all. The first main point I want to make about all of this goes back to the off-season, where the writing was definitely on the wall for what was about to come. In an effort to switch things up, Brad Stevens replaced Danny Ainge as the team's president of basketball operations, overseeing how the team operates in the front office. They then hired Ime Udoka to replace him as the team's head coach, his first opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA after working as an assistant for teams like the Nets, 76ers, and Spurs previously. They then started to make some big changes to the roster, starting with trading away Kemba Walker in exchange for Al Horford. Horford has been a fan favorite in Boston for a while now, and after spending 2 seasons away from the team, the reunion was a feel-good story, but the reality of it is that Horford simply is not the player that he once was. Calling him washed may be a stretch, but he's not the borderline all-star center impacting both sides of the ball at a high level anymore either. The next questionable addition made was when the team traded for Josh Richardson. I've watched a lot of Josh Richardson over the last few seasons, and there's definitely a reason that this is his 4th team that he's played on over the last 4 years. He's pegged as a defensive savant when in reality his defensive impact doesn't match up to his reputation, and offensively, he is one of the most frustrating players you'll ever watch. He settles for contested, low-quality mid-range shots, he's a below-average three-point shooter, and he's incredibly prone to making bad decisions with the ball in his hands. So far, their 2 big additions were 2 of the biggest players in why the 2020 76ers team was so dysfunctional, which doesn't seem like the greatest idea. Then, because they still had to replace Kemba Walker at the point guard position, they went out and acquired Dennis Schroeder, who, again, is a fine addition, but objectively, it's a downgrade from Kemba Walker, especially after his disappointing season with the Lakers last year. Basically, what I'm saying is that none of the moves they made in the offseason really moved the needle all that much, and if anything, they got worse in a few key areas. This is a team that finished in 7th place in the East last year, and the only real way they were going to improve was to bank on both Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown taking major individual leaps, which isn't fair to expect from them as they are already really damn good players as is. Now, that just about wraps up my first main point about how their offseason didn't exactly set themselves up for success, but now my second key point that I think is hurting them is that they just haven't figured out how to play together as a unit, and all of their individualistic play styles are clashing on the court. The Celtics just lost last night to the Bulls after having a big double-digit lead late in the third quarter. Their fourth quarter performance was dreadful, the Bulls went on a big run, and somehow the Celtics ended up being the team that got blown out by the end of it. All of the frustrations from the season boiled up into Marcus Smart letting his thoughts be heard in his post-game interview, where he said this: "I would just like to play basketball. Every team knows we're trying to go to Jayson and Jaylen. Every team is programmed and studied to stop Jayson and Jaylen. I think everybody's scouting report is to make those guys pass the ball. They don't want to pass the ball." I don't know about you, but that sounds like Smart is calling his best players ball hogs and insinuating that they're playing selfishly. Not exactly ideal to be hearing 7 games into the season. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but the funny part about it is that Smart is definitely right to a degree, but he's also the last guy who should be saying it, and I'll divulge fully what I mean. Jayson Tatum absolutely is playing hero ball way too often this season, and I've seen even the most diehard Celtics fans complain about it so far. He's shooting the ball terribly, making just 39% of his shots and 27% of his threes on the season. He's shooting the ball a ridiculous 25 times per game, and he oftentimes seeks out the more difficult contested shots instead of either passing to the open man or trying to get easier looks. He has, without question, shot the Celtics out of a few games this year already, and he needs to be better. He's one of just 5 players so far this year to isolate at least 40 times, and he ranks just in the 23rd percentile in isolation offensive production, while the other 4 players that have that high a volume, being Kevin Durant, James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all rank near the top of that percentile in terms of their production there. As I said though, Smart isn't really one to talk, because Marcus is shooting a dreadful 28% from 3 this season, and specifically in that Bulls game that he complained about after. If you watched the fourth quarter of that game, Tatum and Brown did pass out of several double teams to find him, Josh Richardson, and Al Horford wide open for quite a few shots, only for them to miss all of those attempts. Obviously, Tatum and Brown do still need to cut down on the contested low-quality shot attempts, but the supporting cast did a poor job converting when their opportunities came as well. Overall, the Celtics are a team with a rookie head coach in charge that may be a bit in over his head, and the players are already complaining about each other to the media 7 games into the season. There absolutely is reason to be concerned about them, because the writing was on the wall ever since the offseason, and they lack playmakers to take some of the load off of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown's shoulders. Chemistry is one of the most important parts of a successful basketball team, and the Celtics right now have none of it. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the Celtics and their future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.